Are we in week 5? Week 5.
Yes.
Yes. So probably midterm season for you all. So congrats for being here. You made it into the door. So it was one of many priorities that you had this week. So how many of you have been to a concentration panel already? Nice. Some of you have been to like every single one. Love it. And those of you that haven't, I'll give a quick rundown and then we'll just go ahead and dive in so you can make most of our time. So my name is Mallory Stoffel. I have been known by students as the email lady. If you have gotten an email from me or several, I oversee the Career Readiness Center in the College of Business. So we do our weekly career newsletters. We help students navigate the transition from college to career. So career exploration, concentration decision, internship search, interview prep, and everything in between. We share a wall with the Career Readiness Center. So we're right on the other side and it's located in the Biz Lab. So come in if you have any career questions, we can likely help you out. And so our concentration panels are one of the things that we do. And we have 3 amazing panelists here to talk about real estate finance. We are supposed to have a 4th panelist. We'll see if they make it, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. And we have some questions for our panelists. This is always much more entertaining and engaging and helpful if you all ask questions as we go. So please raise your hand or hop in at any moment, and hopefully we'll be able to answer all of your questions through the next 35 minutes or so. We'll try to wrap up a little bit early so that if you have any individual questions for the panelists, you can pop and chat with them afterwards. Sound good? Yeah? Okay, how many of you are first year students? Great, I love it. We're on top of it. How many of you are first quarter transfer students? Okay, awesome. And how many of you are second year students? Okay, nice. We love to see it. So for those second year students and first quarter transfers, you have until this May 31st, 2024 to declare your concentration. For those of you that are first year students, you have until May 31st, 2025 to declare. All right. If you have any questions about that, let me know. And let's go ahead and dive in. So first and foremost, let's start with some introductions. So if you want to start with your name, year, obviously concentration, if you have any minors, and then anything else, like if you're involved in something on campus or anything else you want to add. You want to start?
Hi everyone, I'm Carly So. I'm a 3rd year econ major concentrating in real estate finance with double minors in RPD, group property development, and architecture.
I haven't heard that combo yet. Sounds like you have a lot of extra classes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Jackie. I'm a 4th year business concentrating in real estate finance. I'm also double minoring in city and regional planning and build property development, and I'm currently the director of finance for Popeye Business.
Hi everybody, I'm Brenna. I'm a 4th year business real estate finance student, and a random fact is I'm also on the Cal Poly cheer team.
Awesome. Okay, so to kick us off, how would you explain real estate finance concentration to someone who knew nothing about it? And what are some like myths or misconceptions about the concentration? You can start in any particular. Charlie, do you want to go?
I'd say for sure real estate finance has a concentration from what I've seen with my personal work experience and the kind of classes and the education we get. It's a very broad overview of the real estate industry, and it sets you up very well for whatever sector of real estate, whether it's finance, lending, brokerage. So from your classes, I'd say try and get the most out of it as you can, because you get like a pretty broad sample of the skills you would need. And in terms of like what myths there are, it definitely is, for me personally, coming from like a POC woman of color, I am like definitely a minority in every workplace I've been in, but it's not something that I feel I'm marginalized by. Like I do feel like with my skills and my ability, I'm not as a person. So that definitely is a myth, and props to you if you're going into a field that doesn't really recruit from your background, but don't let it get to you.
I think for me, the real estate finance concentration is, like Carly said, a very overarching understanding of what real estate can be. And because of the electives that you kind of can choose from, you can kind of cater it to what you want to do in real estate. So personally, I want to go into the development side. And so I take classes specifically that will also double count with my minors, so I'm not here as long. But classes that I'm going to be more interested in. So for me, I know sometimes the finance classes can be more difficult. But development classes are really easy because I really like them. So understanding that maybe you're not going to be great at everything in real estate, but that understanding everything will be really helpful. And then in terms of myths, I'd probably say people think that real estate is always this sexy thing, selling sunset and shows like that only promote that idea. It's not all glamorous. Yeah, if you go into selling $1 million custom homes, a different job might be pretty great. You're gonna see some really cool houses, but not every job in real estate looks like that. So if you don't feel like you have that personality for that, like don't let that hinder you. Like you can do really anything in real estate with any personality for any job. Or kind of that part.
Yes, I would say, probably the concentration is mostly using like finance concepts to try to evaluate real estate, figuring out like what's a good investment, what's not. I would also say, just for me, I know when I was like first and second year looking at the concentration, you do get like a very broad sense of real estate, but it is also kind of heavily finance based. But you can kind of steer that whatever way you want with the approved electives. If you want it more finance heavy, you can take the approved electives that are more finance heavy. If you want to stay away from the finance, because they tend to be a little bit more difficult, you can totally do that as well. But I would just say, I thought it was going to be, like 90% like just real estate, a lot less finance. But there still is a lot of like finance work and finance classes. So just like be ready for that if you're wanting to take on this concentration.
Emphasis on the finance part of this concentration. I feel like another myth is that you will, like the job that you get after having this concentration is to become a real estate agent, and that speaks a little bit to what you were sharing. But it's like, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so actually, you don't need a college degree to be a real estate agent. I got mine when I was 19 years old, didn't have a degree or anything to my name. But I won't be really using it in my career. For me, it's a nice additional thing to have. But it's not the only job you can get out of this degree. I know plenty of people who have gone on and become real estate, like financial analysts at big corporations like JLL and CBRE, and they underwrite $1 million projects all day long. And so they're sitting crunching numbers. So if your brain works like that, then that's great. Mine personally doesn't. So I want to go the development side where I can create something. But there's so many things you can do with this. Like I think for us also, for the real estate club, we really emphasize that. Is that there's not one job that you can do with this degree. So we bring in industry professionals from all over to show that there is very many things you can do with this.
Thank you. So you can get your real estate license if you want, but totally separate from the concentration, and it's not like a guarantee. It's not even required to have a degree to get a real estate license. Yeah. Okay, so before I really want to dive more into like the career bucket. So before we do that, let's spend some time talking about how you all knew that this was the right concentration for you. So were there things that you tried or got involved in, or people that you talked to that really helped you know, like this is the right fit for me?
So for me personally, like as a first year, I kind of knew that I did want to go into real estate, but what really solidified my interest was going to the Cal Poly Real Estate Week. As a director of outreach, we try to get like, as Jackie said, a diversity of speakers, and it really opens like my understanding of the real estate industry can look like. And one thing I particularly enjoy about the real estate concentration above all else is that there's a variety of skills. For instance, I know me personally, I'm a very quantitative person. I work well with numbers, but I also like to be creative and design and architecture, interior design. And so real estate, whether you're quantitative, whether you're a working person, whether you have to tell a story, there's always going to be a career for you because it's such a diverse field. Yes, your education might be really finance focused coming out of undergrad, but there's a lot of roles in brokerage and across different industries. And I like that flexibility for me. So with my skill set, I could go into any sort of job or pick and choose what applications I do as a career.
For me, real estate was the only concentration I ever considered. It was the job I was going to go into no matter what. So I kind of chose Cal Poly for that reason. I also love that I can get minors in real property development and finance and regional planning. So that's kind of why I did Cal Poly anyway. So it's probably not the best or most answer for you guys. But I just knew that it was going to be what I wanted to do. So
I actually did think about a lot of different ones. I was debating between like real estate finance, accounting, or marketing. So I did go to all the different concentration panels, and I kind of used like process of elimination after the concentration panels. After hearing them talk about like what kind of jobs you can get. I wasn't exactly sure like what I wanted to do my first or second year, like job wise. So that was one reason why I picked real estate finance, was because I didn't want to be, you can get a variety of jobs with this concentration, rather than some of our other concentrations kind of lock you down a little bit more. So since I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, this gives me like a broad choices. And then also I kind of I know it's hard to say or hard to like picture yourself in like 5 or 10 years, but if you can like try to picture yourself in like 10 years and think like, where do you want to be? Like, what do you picture yourself doing? And then you can kind of work backwards from there and kind of see like what concentration is going to get me to where I want to be in 10 years.
So it's cool that you each are like arrived where you are for totally different reasons. And I want to, what you said, Brianna, about it being broad. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Because I think there's often a misconception that real estate is really, do any of you feel like real estate is too narrow? Maybe like it's too focused? Yeah, are you choosing between like real estate finance and finance, for example?
Sort of.
Yes, okay, so I'm seeing some head nods, like this feels like it's way more focused than being general finance.
Yeah, I just think, well, there's a lot of different ways you can go with like real estate, you can go like the development side, like they were talking about. You can also just go like the straight like brokerage side. Also, we are real estate finance. So if you decide like, if you do pick the concentration and you're like, actually, I kind of just like the finance stuff more than the real estate stuff, then that option is still open to you as well. If you just want to go more the finance route, that's still like an option, rather than if you just went the finance route and then decided, oh shoot, like I actually am really interested in real estate. It might be a little bit harder to try to get into like brokerage or something, since they are trying to recruit people with like real estate education.
Also, just like add on to that, for my internship this summer, like this for a real estate research firm. Being in real estate, like I was recruited from the real estate background, but I know post-grad, if I like it's like a proposal offer with them, they really want me to get my CFA or become a certified financial analyst. And doing real estate is gonna get your inventory, but that doesn't preclude you from exploring more finance options.
Yeah. If you think about real estate as an industry, like tech, then you could see all of the different job functions that fall under the real estate umbrella. Does that make sense? So there's more sales focused positions, there's more research, there's more analyst positions, there's a development positions where you're like strategy, big picture thinking, and everything in between, right? There's real estate, the investing side of real estate and the wealth management side of real estate. So there's, if you think of it kind of broadly like an industry, then you're preparing yourself to get your foot in the door and then figure out how your skills align with the opportunities in that industry, right? What are some of the, so how many of you are deciding between real estate finance and finance specifically? You're stuck between those two. Okay, do you have any questions that you would want answered? Yeah.
So what's the benefit of like niching down on real estate finance when you could just go with the finance degree and then take a bunch of real estate courses? Because it's like on your resume, you're gonna put, oh, this person only studied real estate finance. When you have a finance, you can get the finance degree and then a real property development minor. So you know, it looks like you have both skill sets. I'm curious what the benefit is of just niching down on the real estate.
Yeah, I actually do know a ton of people who go the finance route and then they do the real property development minor so that they can get that introduction into real estate. A lot of people I've had like interactions with that have done that route. They kind of do it more so because they want finance to be their degree and their career, but they want to understand real estate so that they can invest in it later on. So that's where I think you might not get the full emphasis of like an overarching understanding of real estate is if you do that sometimes. Also, not to cheat the system or anything, but if you go real estate finance, you only need like 2 or 3 extra classes for the RPD minor. So it's really easy to have that on if you want to add something else to your belt. But
transfers in a room.
Yeah.
Thinking about trying to get out in a reasonable amount of time.
but honestly, like for me, I like finance, not one of my best subjects. When it comes to real estate finance, I understand it really well because I can correlate it better. For me, having something tangible and looking at an asset that I'm like, that's a physical thing, makes more sense in my head. And I know a lot of people who then go down the real estate side, they can look at a building and say, yeah, I did that. And they can drive down the street and say, I own this, I'm invested in that building. And it's a tangible asset that you can see every single day and be proud of. you could do that the same thing with stocks, you just can't actually see them. So it's like, it just depends, I think, where one, your like skill set lie. If you really want to crunch numbers all day long and really go the finance route, that's definitely an option for you. But real estate kind of lets you have those alternatives if you don't want to do the finance thing, but you can still do it within real estate. Like, I think it gives you, personally, it sounds like more of a niche, but it actually, I think, gives you more opportunity if you want to go the real estate industry. So
Also, to add a wrinkle to it from my experience with recruiting cycles. Of course, you can take real estate classes in addition to it being a finance degree, but some recruiters look specifically for real estate. So it's not as tangible a way to demonstrate you have real estate knowledge if you just have a broad concentration. It sets you up better to go into the jobs you actually, if you want to go to real estate for those jobs.
From a recruiting standpoint, it's sometimes a misconception, like being broad doesn't always serve you, because then you're more likely to be similar to a lot of other candidates versus actually making it part of like your brand and who you are is really appealing. And we'll dive into this with the real estate industry. It's so much about who you know. Like, I think they're even less concerned with like even what's on paper of your diploma, and so much about like, is this what you're passionate about? Are you like, these real estate people are so into real estate, right? And so it just is like so much about who you know, so much about like having that shared interest. And so there's a lot of ways you can demonstrate that. And there's been plenty of finance folks that have gone directly into real estate, but I wouldn't choose real estate finance if you're not confident about real estate. But I would not choose general finance if you know you want to end up in real estate. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, and I know there's a question over here.
What year did you guys be adding the property development?
I took my first like minor class in my first year sophomore year. It was just made sense for me because I just have the credits in the space and planning. And because I knew I wanted to do real estate early, it was pretty easy for me to just add on that extra class. So I'd say like definitely get started, because kind of like going into a little more detail, there is like a chain of 3 pre-read classes that you have to finish your core concentration. Like it goes fixed income, finance, investment, if I'm not wrong. And they're only offered once a year. So you want to drop that out in like probably 3 consecutive quarters if you want. You gotta find it out. If you have the credits, do it sophomore year. If you don't, do it junior year as everybody else does. But for your electives, like you guys are probably all business or econ majors, so you can already kind of see like overlap, like intermediate micro or econometrics. Like, you can see those classes are going to be your course progression anyway, so might as well get started on this earlier. So you can graduate like on time or lower.
I don't actually remember when I declared. I think I declared my city regional planning minor first and then did the property development. Either way, I knew I was gonna add both of them on. It was just a matter of when I was gonna actually fill out the paperwork. And unless it's changed, and I want to say I did both of them as a sophomore, but took classes for them my freshman year. But unless it's changed, I still believe you just fill out paperwork and it has to get approved. But I know sometimes there's like an interview process for other minors. That's still not the case for these minors, so. Yeah, I'm like, they're not technically also in OCOB, so you will become they're in the College of Architecture and Environmental Design. So though you'll like have to like reach out to those minor like advisor heads and they'll have all the information for that.
Okay, should we dive into some coursework stuff? So what has been like a standout class or one that you really enjoyed that you want to speak to?
Yeah, I want to start. So my very first class was CM personally my fall quarter sophomore year, and it was for me like a very enjoyable class because it was just project based. Side story, but my group was horrible. I learned a lot from that class. It was like an easy A for me, as it was like for most of the other classes. We just had to take a site. Mine was in Huntington Beach. We picked a lot. We hypothetically like bought it, and I was able to build a 3D render like what I wanted the site to look like. It was a lot of fun designing and building. And also I'd say my interviews for like job cycles, that class has been the most instrumental for me. Because I came out of it with an actual project. I've been working on the entire quarter, and the instructor was very like helpful because he was actually a real estate developer that just teaches in his free time. And I was able to bring this project to interviews, and whenever they would say like, do you have any projects you'd like to share, or like, how did you really get into real estate? I like pointed this one project I did, and they were always really interested in seeing like my specifics and how I thought for this area. So pretty much that class was just like interview prep for a quarter, but then we do that. But try and get Ryan, these are good.
I also took that exact class and it was also like my favorite one and I'm not even looking to go into development. But I took that class before I was kind of debating between like brokerage or development. And I took that class and I did like really enjoy it. It's probably my favorite class I've taken at Cal Poly, even though it's in the construction management department. But it is still like really applicable to development if you want to like get an idea of what, you know, your job would kind of be like if you're into development.
Yeah, for me, I would probably say my top three would be CRP 446, which is development review and entitlement. So for me, I knew that I wanted to get a emphasis in city regional planning because with development, your planning department can either make or break your project. And so I wanted to have an understanding of what that process looked like. So development review and entitlement, for those of you who like don't know, if you're gonna build a project, it has to get entitled. You have to work with the city and it has to go through this long process to get approved. And that class basically went over that entire process. We also had to interview city planners, which I was able to actually interview a family friend for that project, and he was able to kind of just talk more to his career. And so for me, that was just a really helpful understanding of like how the early stages of development happen, like kind of the things that you might not think about of like, okay, I bought land, but how do I actually get this building on here? Like there's a big process to go into that. And then plan implementation for 412 CRP. A lot of areas have things called a specific area plan, and it's basically cities creating either a downtown or a strip in their city where they want to create something really special or enhance the city in some way. So a lot of them do like their downtowns. SLO has their own specific plan for their downtown area, and it's how the city hopes to kind of generate wealth in the area, how they hope to bring it up, how they want to bring people in. So that entire project, we built that class, it's a quarter-long project, as a lot of these classes are, where you built out an entire specific area plan for an area in a city you were assigned. So I got a random city in LA and we decided to put this massive development project on it to bring a crap ton of wealth to the area. And then we presented it to the class and I was like, wait, like this is actually really interesting. Like it combined the development that I want to do with my city and regional background that I really enjoyed. And then also the development class that has already been talked about. Literally got a 10-acre plot of land in Pomo and I got to put whatever the heck I wanted on it within certain regulations. And we worked, well, unfortunately my class did not have any architecture students, so our renderings weren't that cute, but we got to say, hey, we're going to put a 6 building apartment kind of community on this area. We're going to build a childcare center. We're going to build a dog park, and we're going to need 192 parking spots for all these people. We're also going to put restaurants. So you got to like work and see like from a finance side, how much is this going to cost and will it ever make us any money? But from just the design aspect of like, well, what do I want to do with 10 acres? What can I do with it? So it kind of, you're given the freedom to do multiple things within those classes, being like, okay, like what could I do with real estate? So very interesting. But of the core classes, I've actually only taken one of them, or 2 of them, and 2 of them aren't being offered next quarter. So doing substitutes for those.
Yeah, I would also say, just because we kind of talked about development ones, if you're more interested in like the finance side of this concentration, 439 is like only finance based, like there is no, it's like stocks and bonds and like diversifying portfolios. There's pretty much like no talk of real estate at all. So that one's like a really heavy finance class. So if you're like thinking more that you want more finance knowledge or you're more into the finance side, then that's a class you can look forward to. And then we're in 434 together right now, which is real estate finance, and that's like a good mix of both. And it does use, I would say it's mostly a finance class, but applying finance to like actual, you know, buildings and real estate rather than stocks and bonds and
The one where you work on like pro forma and you're like, you kind of learn how to talk the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically like how are you gonna finance a building or a project, like we have a midterm in an hour in that class. That's basically what our entire midterm is gonna be,
Yeah.
basically financing tools,
Okay,
different mortgage types. and whatnot.
yeah. Any questions about coursework? No, that's often a big one. Oh, do you want to talk about senior project opportunities? You know, like what are the options for?
Yeah, so I actually did mine last year, basically in the real estate concentration, there's really three you can do. You can do a competition, which is actually really heavily recommended, because that gives you kind of real world experience. I didn't do that one, but I have a lot of friends who've done it, and they get to travel to New York and Vegas to kind of present their projects. The president for the real estate club actually just did one. He built a custom home in Georgia and did all the finance for it, but he worked with construction management students to kind of build out this whole project. You can get your real estate license or you can get Argus certified. I got Argus certified, so for those of you who don't know, it's basically an underwriting software for any type of building. It's all online and you kind of page yourself out. It's not a very cheap option to do, but while doing it at Cal Poly, you actually get a really good student discount. So if you have the funds to do it and it's something that you're interested in, I would recommend it, but a lot of people will also get their real estate license.
Have you completed yours and do you know?
No.
Okay, how do you know what you're gonna do? I'm a third year right now,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of at a weird spot because I was going to finish in 3 years, but I changed my mind. I wanted to do a kind of 4. So I don't really have enough credits to finish out 4 years. So I'm deciding like if I want to graduate quarterly and do like 3 years, 1 quarter, 2 quarters and just travel, or I want to do like a master's. So I'm looking at what
Okay.
I really don't know. I can't
Yeah.
speak to the senior projects.
I would say I'm doing my next quarter, and I do know just like some advice I've been given that I would like pass on is, to try to like diversify your senior projects from the other things you've done. So if you did a lot of, classes and electives that are more like development based or like real estate based, then you should probably do a senior project that's more, finance based if you want to like balance that out. Unless if you're like really into the development, then you can like go full force with that. But I know, the competitions are like kind of similar, projects to what we did in CM 475, like kind of close. So if you already have a project that's in that realm, it might help you more to get a certification rather than just to add in another project that's in that same realm. That way you can have 2 different things to show employers. Unless you're like, I'm development 100%, then feel free, like go full force into that. But if you're wanting more of like the finance side, then definitely diversify that a little bit.
Yeah, and CM 475, just depending on what professor you have. I had it with Julia Roberts and she literally based our quarter-long project on these competitions that students compete in. So basically we got almost the exact same like information and stuff, and then instead of building it out over however long they do for their competition, you have the quarter to build it out, so.
Who's because Ratish is out on sabbatical.
Fiduci, but it's also, Ramadan is kind of basically
Okay.
running it.
Okay.
Fiduci kind of, yeah.
Ratish is amazing. I feel like that's another value add of real estate finances, is just a smaller community and really tight knit, and the department chair is, or the concentration chair is like just a really cool guy.
Yeah, I was actually so bummed when we went on sabbatical,
I
so I was
know.
like, I never got a class with him.
Yeah.
And it is one of like the best parts about the concentration. Everyone's like, oh my god, you got a class with him. I'm like, no, he left before I got the chance.
Rude. Yes. Yeah, he's wonderful. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the career opportunities, and then maybe you all can share like internship experience. I know we talked about that a little bit. So do you want to kind of like, I guess sometimes all the terminology around real estate can be new for students if you haven't ever explored it before. So do you want to break down like what is a brokerage and what do they do versus like the private equity space and REITs? Like how did your I'm not in real estate, so did I say that right? Can you kind of first break down like what are the main career buckets that people in real estate go into?
Okay. Oh, what a REIT is a real estate investment trust. If you think of it as a corporation, they're publicly traded companies on like the S&P 500. They're just like Apple or Google, but you can like buy stock, but they're like not really called stock. It's kind of a different structure, but there is like individual development firms. For instance, There's like healthy properties, which I was assigning with the offer at, which specifically in like healthcare, and they're like a $3-4 billion company. And REITs are just like any other firm in real estate. They like focus on maybe like a specific class of building or based or like very generalized. And they can be unlisted or listed, which means you can like trade them like stocks.
I guess I'm like probably going into brokerage, and I've had a few interviews last week with some brokerage firms. So I would say brokerage is kind of more of like the sales outgoing extroverted side of real estate. So it's basically like selling commercial properties. It could be entire malls, office buildings, industrial, apartment complexes, basically like pretty much anything that's like not residential, anything that's like not houses. But brokerage is definitely less of just like the sitting by yourself finance-ish side, and more of like the out there extracurricular salesy side.
Yeah, and also bridge like brokerage, it goes a little bit beyond sales too, so they'll also help with like leasing, so you'll see JLL sign in commercial buildings all over, and they help with the leasing. I worked for a developer over the summer, and JLL was the brokerage that they used for one of their properties, so they basically have a contract with them to say, okay, you have 6 months to a year to find us tenants for our retail space. So they'll do that, they'll handle all the leasing of it, and just that kind of thing. And then private equity, it's actually kind of a new term to real estate. It's kind of one of those new, like, they also like boutique firms, like it's a new term to real estate that really hasn't been used previously. But basically, like PJM and Blackstone, they handle a lot of like the debt and equity side of real estate. So that is maybe a lot of number crunching. So if that's what you really like, those are great companies to look at. Blackstone has an incredible program. We actually, the real estate club brings in Mike Stretch. Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the vice presidents, and he does his own like real estate, like basically camp for kids in college and stuff. So he basically does help them figure out networking all, and honestly he does so much I can't like speak to it right now. But they have an insanely competitive program that it's pretty cool for now. Like everyone's like, I wish I got it. I was like, oh, that's another level. But
So we have like students, all of these are companies that real estate students have gone into, or firms that real estate students have gone into from the California program. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to maybe just speak to, how about like, let's talk about internship. Do you want to hear about internships? Like how you found them, what you did, what you learned? Does that sound good? Yeah, okay. Okay. Internships, how'd you find them? What was it like?
So I feel like maybe 30 jobs. Well, they're kind of, they're not like all like. Okay, 2 of them are jobs. The third one is just like a research. I did research with Caducee, our department chair over the summer. And my very first one was in loan processing. Kind of a little context behind what loan processing is. When you're trying to like buy a house, you probably don't have enough capital to like pay like the 1.2 million like outright. So like down payment, but you have to like get debt from somewhere. Like a bank needs to be willing to give you money. And then what loan underwriting is, I did on it for like a client, like a boutique firm in my hometown, but this is like on a smaller scale than what it's actually in the industry, where you're like borrowing money from like banks like Blackstone or like huge or like JP Morgan. And so the process of like underwriting is, I feel like, a pretty important skill to have. Or if you don't know specifically what underwriting is, like it's good to at least like what credit people are looking for, like so your credit scores or like your history of and what kind of the project you're looking at. So my very first job was in loan underwriting, not for me. It was a summer where the rates are really low. When the rates are low, the cost of getting debt is very cheap comparatively. So we're looking at like 2 to 3% interest on your loan. And so we were going through a lot of cases, and I was just like a cog in the machine, like printing out, like checking documents, making sure there's credit checks, making sure the insurance company gives me title. And so that is a cool skill to have. I have a good work ethic, and I learned all the soft skills from the job, but it's also something I want to go into. And this summer I did research on generative AI and state and how they can be incorporated in business goals. Also, maybe not what I want to do for the future, because it's very like PS heavy and it's not really my area of expertise. But there are applications in real estate research, and real estate research is a very niche field, but there are like a lot of publications here, again, you can get published, and it's like a small like, sphere. So I'd say, and my last one, which is probably the most relevant, I did real estate research at Green Street. So within real estate, there's like 3 firms that really supply research to like everybody, like whether you're a brokerage, private equity. And Green Street is one of those 3. And what I did this summer was build out Excel models that go to SQL and pull data. And I would have to like make market grades. Market grades are just, they're not really like a real estate term, but they're specific to like what Green Street sells into products. Where they go through like every market in the US, real estate wise by region, and we break it down into the sectors like hospitality, human capital, and we like grade each of the markets based on how good they are. And so it's a lot of like econometric modeling. It goes well with my background as an econ major, but maybe not like private equity, real estate, REITs specific. So I found these jobs through LinkedIn because although Handshake does have a lot of job offerings, it almost like all the 62 externals that really compile the company. So I find like LinkedIn is my way to go for like connecting with people and talking about this because we're all on LinkedIn.
Did you network in addition to your application? Or like, how did you differentiate yourself from the 1,000 other applicants on LinkedIn?
So one thing I do know is that my first 2 jobs, I like kind of got through networking. My loan processing one, like sort of like a family friend, but that was like out of left field. And then with Caduceusy, I know that there's a program called CERT, like Summer Undergraduate Research Program. The College of Business has like their own CERT participants, and if you want to explore like academia and research, I suggest you apply for it next year or connect with a professor. So I got the job for Caduceusy, and then my Green Street one, I didn't know anybody who worked there. Cal Poly was not really supposed to figure out it, but I went out of the way to like talk with the hiring person, and I did my research for going to the interview. Like anybody would tell you this going into the interview, like search up who's going to be interviewing you, and like look at their background, look at their educational history, try to find common time with them. So if there's ever like a lower conversation, you bring that up and have to talk about themselves. And I have to say, like the interviews were pretty technical, and I was sophomore, like ready for them. But I was able to make up for it with my like personality and the fact that I researched and I was able to talk about my employers, my future employers, about like, hey, so I saw you got nominated for the business journal, like what's like being a woman in finance. And she was able to like talk to them a lot, and my intern class, like we all like talked to us immediately after we got our offers and said like we were all like hires instead of being there. So definitely like if you don't have a network, start building it now, and it doesn't hurt to really put yourself out there, because as a student, this is a time where people really want to help you. As an adult, your connections are not really like drying up, but you're not a student anymore, so people aren't as willing to take time for you.
Yeah, so I've technically had 3 internships. One of them was in high school and then 2 of them have been in college. I worked for an escrow firm down in my hometown. I was in high school. So for those of you who don't know, escrow is basically the third party that manages a transaction once you get on the residential, well, both residential and commercial, but I worked on the residential side. Once you kind of assign a purchase agreement, it goes to them to kind of handle all the paperwork and the transfer of money. So they're basically an unbiased third party that help you finish out a transaction. So I helped with that. Learned I don't want to do that. It's a lot of chaos and it was a lot of paperwork. Wasn't my cup of tea, but gave me the understanding what I needed. I then worked in sales and new construction. So the development off Madonna Road, that's about 500 units. I worked there. I sold 3 of their communities. And I now live there. So it was a very full circle moment. But it was great because I actually got to shadow the head superintendent. So I got a little bit better understanding of like the construction process. And I also got to sit with our purchasing department to kind of see how that side of things works. Development was definitely the route I wanted to go. So it was great to see that. Learned I don't maybe want to sell tract homes though, because it can be very redundant. The clients are great and everybody's awesome, but I kind of learned I would like to maybe build something more creative than better houses. And then this past summer, I worked for a real estate developer down in Pasadena, and I worked on a mixed use building. So it was 127 unit apartment with about 10,000 square feet of commercial on the ground floor. So that was pretty interesting to see that process. I basically worked with them from when they were pulling electrical to when they were plastering the outside of the building. So very much deep in the construction process. I was out on site every week, hard hat on, trucking through the dirt and the mud, but it was great. I loved it. I'm actually hoping to get an offer back from them, when I graduate in March, but keeping my fingers crossed, but nothing is officially yet. And I got those, honestly, from my connections. Real estate is a relationship game. So my first job, or my first internship, I actually worked for my dad. He is a broker and owns his own escrow company, so I worked for him. I grew up in real estate, so every connection that I have is somewhat an extension of his or what I've made in college. And so maybe that makes me an apple baby, but I will ride that wave all day long because that's what real estate is. It is a relationship game. So this last, when I worked in sales, they were headquartered in my hometown. I knew about them for years and got my foot in the door, and interview process went great. Brought my resume and basically any applicable job experience I had and got offered the job. And then I was hoping to work with them again this summer, but when I got back from being abroad, the market had shifted. Rates were really high and they laid off half their sales team. So I was like, okay, there goes that job. So I had to quickly pivot. The developer I worked for this summer, they built a project in my hometown, got connected with them, and then that's how I got that job. So it's very much a relationship game. And if you don't have them, start making them, because they're gonna give the job to someone they trust a lot more than a stranger. So if you can make the connections, do it.
So the job I have now, I currently work as a part-time leasing assistant at the Academy Slow. It's one of the apartment complexes down here. So I do basically like a real estate agent for the apartment complex. So I like give tours of the apartment complex, generate leases, help people sign leases. I do like market analysis of the area, because we always want to know, you know, what our competitors' rates are when they're starting leasing, all stuff like that. I also work with my general manager on like the property management side of things, just to like learn from her. So that's like another kind of area of real estate that's a lot more real estate focused if you're not into the finance as much as like property management. So I kind of work with her in that. So that's the job I have right now. That's kind of like, since I want to go into brokerage, it's kind of like a baby step there, because it is, you know, more sales based, as I'm trying to like sell our apartments to people basically. But I kind of just like fell into this job randomly. I just happened to apply at the right time. And my interview was actually like, they gave me a tour of the apartment, and then my like interview was, okay, now you give us the tour and like pretend that you're the real estate agent. So I just like happened to do good on that and got the job. And I'm from like a really small town, like not, my parents are not into real estate. So I definitely didn't have like the connections starting from the beginning. So like, if you don't worry about that. Like if you don't have them now, don't be like stressed and thinking like, I can't do this. Like you can definitely start building them if you don't have them to begin with. So yeah, I kind of just like fell into that job, but now the ones I'm applying for, like post grad, I am getting them through like connections I've made. Like the interview I had last week with a brokerage firm, I got like through my cousin who already works for them. So
Yeah, huge emphasis on relationships.
yes.
Someone's in the chat asking if you could talk more about the real estate club.
Yes, yeah, so, we have meetings basically every Thursday. We're kind of limiting our Tuesday meetings so they're more consistent. We're downstairs in room 206, and we bring in industry. Yeah, it changes every quarter.
Okay.
We sometimes don't get the reservation we would like.
Yeah.
But we, basically every week bring in a different industry speaker. So we'll bring back alumni because they love coming back to Cal Poly, but we'll also get new connections just all the time. So, I mean, we'll probably speak to more team on our outreach team, but.
So we try to get diversity of speakers, like we have Mike Struck, you mentioned earlier, he's a vice president of Blackstone. And the week before we had someone in construction manager come in, they let Porter and Slow like talk about how they're helping out individual lenders. And last year we had someone from like Northern Bank, who's also working with Slow, but he specializes in like very small loans. And we had like a very large variety of speakers that come in because real estate is a really large industry. And so if there's anything that you guys want to see speaker wise, like maybe real estate investment, real estate development, like reach out, let us know. We'll probably be a fun speaker for you. And there's a QR code for a group meet. Group meet is a way you can touch and then say, well, we've got it's like, hey, we're having the speaker in short bio, and that interests you, you can always come to our meetings, they're always like that on Thursday. And so as outreach like we had a pretty good of being with students, so we brought people all of us.
Yeah, and then the speakers we do have, sometimes we do have internship opportunities where they work for companies that are looking for interns or full hires. We have really good connections with JLL. We have at least 4 or 5 alumni directly from our club who've gone to work on them, so they're always sending people back, because they love stuff and they want to keep recruiting from us. So if you want to work for those big companies, like, they're great ways to just start those connections, because also the people that we get out here, like, they're always happy to help and they want to make connections with you guys. So they're always like, yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, like, call me whenever, like, we can set up a time to talk. Like, we've had, Rick Salinas is a VP at JLL, and he literally, one of our meetings was throwing out cash to people who could answer questions.
Cash?
Yep.
Like
He,
$100.
like, he's like, hey, who knows what a cap rate is? Someone actually goes, here's $100. And so it's like, we get a wide variety of people, like, they love coming back. And it's all different types of people. Like, we have developers. We had an investor who, if anyone knows the show, what was it? Flipper? No, it's some flipping show on HGTV, Tarek Musa.
Oh,
He's an investor who works with him. We didn't actually get Tarek out here, but it's one of his good buddies. He's like, oh yeah, I just talked to him last week. And I was like, oh, that guy's on TV. Like, that's kind of funny. So we kind of get a bunch of different people. We get people who are not shy about the fact that they've made millions of dollars in this industry, and they will literally sit down and tell you, oh yeah, I just made a 6% commission on a $200 million project. And we're all doing the math in our heads, like, wait, that's a lot of money. And so we get people who, I mean, to be respectful, you don't ask someone how much money they make, but if they're willing to open up, you just sit there and you're like, wow, that's incredible. I could do that, which is really exciting. But yeah, we're always looking for new members. We're always very open. We open our policies. Always have free food too, typically the Costco pizza.
Sometimes $100 bills.
And sometimes $100 bills, you
Really
never know.
expensive.
So sometimes read up too, because you know the answers to those questions, they're pretty helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're basically trying to just create a community and help you guys create connections to real estate.
If you're one of those folks in the audience who's like, I don't have family in real estate and you want to start building your network, this is a really great place to do that. And think if you are, there's a lot of first years in this room. When you go to that club and you network with the 3rd and 4th years that then graduate and are in industry and you build that relationship, then now like you have an alumni connection when you start applying for your 3rd year internships or for your full-time jobs, right? Another quick pitch is we have an alumni mentoring program in the Career Readiness Center. We still have 2 real estate mentors. One is an underwriter at JP Morgan and the other is at JLL, Zach. You probably know Zach pretty well. And they both are incredible mentors. They Cal Poly champions. So if you are interested in like diving in head first, getting a mentor in real estate and kind of taking the next step from here, if you're pretty confident that's the industry you want to go into, all you have to do is apply and come to an orientation and then we'll pair you. Obviously, those 2 spots will probably fill up fast, but wanted to throw it out there for you all as well. Any parting thoughts before we wrap up? Is there anything we didn't talk about? One last question. Oh, yeah, do you want to ask one last question?
Yeah, just one. When you got your real estate license, my understanding is you, broker after a certain time period to hold that. Did you have your dad do that, or what was that process?
Yeah, so my dad is a broker for RE/MAX, so he operates 4 offices down in Southern California. I didn't want to pay the RE/MAX dues because they're very expensive. It's not cheap. So he actually has a secondary brokerage with an investment firm that he works out of. So I put my license under them. But yes, if you are gonna get your salesperson license, which you have to get first, you can't immediately become a broker. You have to hold it under a broker, and they hold on all the liability and responsibility and look over you as an agent. So that is also nice, is that when you do start doing transactions, someone is basically forced to look over all your paperwork because they're liable if you do something wrong. So I don't exactly know the time frame that it is required to hold under. But it's pretty quickly after you get your license. I think on the application, you literally have to say the broker you're gonna hold it under. So that is something to be aware of. If you do want to hold it under Compass, a RE/MAX, a Keller Williams, they all have national dues or dues to that broker. Oh, and then depending on what brokerage you go to, there's also commission splits. So if you do start working for them, you want to advocate for yourself, but also as a new person, understand that you're not going to be making all the money in a transaction because whoever is your broker will take a percentage of that.
Thank you. Huge thank you to our panelists for being here and giving. It's noon, so I'm sure you all have places to be. You have a midterm to take.
Yes.
But we will follow up